Pine Hollow, New York. The kind of town where time didn't just stand still. It got bored and sat down for coffee. Tucked between tired mountains and a forest with more secrets than trees, it was the kind of place kids either escaped from or vanished into. 12-year-old Michael Crane had never minded the quiet. He actually liked it, especially in late August when the trees whispered about the coming cold and the wind smelled like endings. That afternoon, his mother told him to stay close to the trail near the house, but boredom is louder than caution. He cut through the trees. It only took 10 minutes of weaving through ferns and dry twigs before something glinted beneath a rotten stump. Michael knelt down and cleared away the damp leaves with the back of his hand. It was a small brass spyglass, tarnished, cold, heavy for its size. Intricate engravings covered the barrel, vines twisted in symmetrical patterns, and tiny faces peered out from between the lines, too faded to be clear. Michael raised it to his eye. At first, all he saw were tree branches and blue sky, maybe some bird nests. But then, something shifted. Beyond the trees, a structure emerged. Black stone. A tower. It shouldn't have been there. The top was crooked, cracked open like a broken crown. At the highest balcony, shadowy figures stood, unmoving. He blinked, pulled the spyglass away. The tower was gone. With shaking fingers, Michael brought it back up again. There it was, still there. The figures were closer now, watching. He dropped the spyglass and bolted. Branches tore at his hoodie, roots nearly twisted his ankles, but he didn't stop until he was back on the trail. The kind of fear that tightens your throat had him by the ribs. He pedaled home like the forest was chasing him. Maybe it was. That evening, the dinner table was unusually quiet. His father, Daniel Crane, watched him push green beans around with his fork. Eventually, he asked, "Something happen out there today?" Michael glanced at the hallway. His backpack, with the spyglass inside, leaned against the wall like it was listening. "I found something in the woods." His father set down his fork slowly. "What kind of something?" A telescope, a spyglass." The room went still. Daniel stood, walked to the fridge for water, and leaned against the counter in silence. Then he spoke, quieter than usual. "When I was your age, I found something like that too." Michael blinked. "Really?" Daniel nodded. "Only, I didn't keep it. My friend Greg did. They were best friends, just like Michael and his classmate Sean were now. One afternoon in late summer, they'd found the spyglass half buried behind the churchyard. Greg took it, thought it looked like something from a pirate movie. That night, he told Daniel he saw a frozen lake in the middle of the forest through it, and a girl standing on the ice. The next week, Greg vanished. Vanished as in, bed still made, no signs of running away, no goodbyes. Daniel's father, Michael's grandfather, had searched for days with the police. The forest was combed, dogs were brought in, but not even a shoe was found. "I haven't thought about that in years," Daniel said, his voice brittle. "But it's not something you forget." Michael couldn't breathe. Sleep came in fragments that night. At 2:30 a.m., he got out of bed and tiptoed to the window. The spyglass sat on his desk. just sitting there. One look, that's all. He raised it. The tower again, but closer, almost too close, as if the trees had leaned aside to make way. In one of the balconies, a shape stood, tall, thin, pressed against the railing. Its hand lifted, not to wave, to point, at him. Michael gasped and stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. From outside came the faintest sound, like rustling leaves. No, not quite. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, as if someone walked the forest line, waiting. The next day, Michael begged his father for more details. Daniel hesitated, then disappeared into the basement and returned with an old shoebox. Inside was a yellowed newspaper clipping. Boy missing near State Park. Search underway. August 23, 1998. Gregory T. Miller, age 12, disappeared Thursday afternoon while playing near the woods. The grainy photo showed a boy smiling, but the eyes, even in blurry ink, looked unsettled. Daniel handed Michael the paper. That spyglass, it's not a toy, it's a door, or a hook, or both. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of Michael. He returned to the edge of the forest, spyglass in hand. But he didn't look through it yet. Something was hanging from a tree. He stepped closer, a small silver coin, old, weathered, hanging from a leather string. Michael's breath caught in his throat. Then, from the depths of the woods, barely audible beneath the wind, came a voice. "Take a look." He turned and ran.
Michael didn't tell his father about the coin. Not that night. Not the next morning. Something about it made him feel like saying it aloud would make it real. And more than anything, he didn't want it to be real. At school, he couldn't focus. During lunch, he stared at the trees swaying behind the fence and imagined what stood just beyond, watching. That night, he didn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., he heard it again. The sound of leaves shifting, not wind, but movement. And then, a soft tap on the window. He sat up in bed, frozen. The curtains shifted slightly. No branches were near that side of the house. He crawled from bed and, hands trembling, pulled the curtain aside. No one. But on the sill was another coin, smaller, dirtier, bent in the middle. He didn't open the window. He just stepped back and sat down on the floor, knees to his chest, and stayed there until the sun came up. In the daylight, it was almost easier to pretend none of it happened. But the spyglass still lay on his desk, and now there were 2 coins. That Saturday, his father was away on a work trip, and Michael's mom was running errands. He found himself staring at the woods from the porch. The wind was still. Even the birds were quiet. The forest had gone mute. He didn't mean to pick up the spyglass. He just did. Through it, the tower loomed closer than ever. And something was on the ground now. A trail. A path lined with broken stones and flickering lanterns. Figures stood on either side, tall, silent, robed in black. Their faces were not human. The path led straight to a gate. Michael dropped the spyglass. He backed away, heart hammering in his chest. But he already knew what was coming. That night, he would see it again, and again, and again, and the gate would be closer every time. By Monday, he didn't want to eat. He barely spoke. His mother called the school and said he was sick. Daniel returned that evening and noticed immediately that something was wrong. Michael finally told him everything: the tower, the coins, the whispers, the dream about the girl on the frozen lake, the figures in the woods, the sound at the window, the second coin. His father sat in silence, expression unreadable. Then he stood up and walked out to the garage. When he returned, he held a rusted lockbox and an old leather notebook. Michael had never seen either before. Daniel sat down beside him and opened the box. Inside were photographs, black and white images of woods, blurred shapes, coins, even one of what looked like a spiral staircase descending into dirt. He flipped through them quickly, then handed the notebook to Michael. It was old, very old. Inside were handwritten notes, dates, sketches, descriptions of the vision and the watchers. There were multiple entries referencing a lens gate and repeated warnings. Do not look through the glass after 3 visions. Burn the coins. Never accept a third. Daniel explained that their family had been tied to the forest for generations, that not everyone saw the same thing through the glass, that most never survived the 4th night. Michael hadn't had a 4th night yet, but it was coming. His father made a fire in the backyard pit. They dropped both coins into the flames. The metal sizzled, cracked, and eventually blackened. Then they buried the spyglass 6 feet down under a slab of concrete and poured salt around the edges. I don't know if this will work, Daniel admitted, but it's the only way I know. Michael didn't sleep much that night, but he wasn't visited. No dreams, no whispers, no tapping. For the first time in a week, silence felt like peace. Days passed. A week. Michael began to return to himself, slowly, carefully. At night, he would glance at the window just once to be sure. Always empty. But 2 weeks later, the mail arrived with no return address. A small padded envelope addressed simply to the one who looked. Daniel opened it for him. Inside was a single object, a 3rd coin. It was pristine, silver, almost glowing. On its face was an engraving, a twisted tower. On the back, 1 vision left. Michael stared at it, unable to speak. His father carefully took the coin and locked it away. Then he called someone, an old man with a voice like gravel. They spoke in hushed tones. That night, Michael overheard the word binding and warding circle. More days passed. Michael stopped looking out the window. He tried to forget, to distract. But the truth was something had followed him back. Not physically, not yet. But in the cold, in the shadows of his dreams, he could feel it waiting. And sometimes, when he closed his eyes too long, he could hear footsteps in the leaves, getting closer. And in those moments he wondered, was the spyglass a window or a mirror?